Okay, so welcome to this webinar today, which is Microsoft 365 overview, and I'll just start with the statement of acknowledgement. We acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We also pay respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia present here. And today's session, I might just mute you. Today's session is a bit of a whirlwind tour of all the apps that you have available for you through the Microsoft 365 program. So the first bit of the session is more me showing you things, so the apps you have available and how you might use them. And then the second bit of the session is hands-on. So you won't so much need this tip for the first bit of the session because it's probably more useful you watching what I'm doing on the screen. But in the hands-on session, if you're coping with one screen, the handy tip is to use the Windows key and the left or right arrow, and that splits your screen, which then allows you to see me and work in and out at the same time. And with that, I am now going to share my screen and we can get started. Okay, so today we're talking about Microsoft 365 and there are a whole lot of apps that you have access to. Now, the best way to access the web applications, and quite a few of these are only web applications, is through going to the EdPass portal. And I've just put the link in the chat if you're not familiar, and then scrolling down and accessing most of them here. There's also this Microsoft 365 portal, and that actually takes you to all the apps that are available because some of them aren't on this EdPass screen. So when you click on that, that takes you to this home page here. And then down the side here, oops, hopefully my computer is not going to mess up for me. Okay, so down the side here, we've got the apps, and that takes us to the all apps view. So we've got the main apps up the top here. And then if I click on all apps here, I see all the apps that I have available with my M365 license. Just be aware that some of them are not currently available for education. For example, this purple one up here, ClipChamp, that isn't currently available for education. So we're going to have a look at some of these and some of the features in this first part of the session. And the first app that we're going to look at is Outlook, and hopefully most of you are familiar with this. So I'm just going to go into Outlook. And I'm just going to quickly talk about some of the features down the side, which you might not be familiar with. So Outlook web version is quite different from your desktop version. And these icons down the side here, the calendar one, this is where you can create meetings, but there's also quite a nice thing or feature, which is bookable time. So if you're wanting your colleagues or parents, for example, to be able to, or students, to be able to book time to meet with you, you can click into this bookable time, and then I'll just go to the one I've created. So you can set up a bookings page, and I'll talk about bookings a bit later as well, with office hours, and attach this at the bottom of your email. So people can see when you're available and they can book a time with you without having to worry about whether you're free in your calendar. So that's quite nice, and you can set that up from your Outlook online. This icon here, which is groups, is currently turned off in our tenancy, so just ignore that. But this tick here, the to-do, this is quite handy as well. This is kind of like a to-do list that's automatically created if you flag an email, for example. So if in my emails, I don't think I've got any, but if I flag some emails, they'd pop up here. And then if your team is using anything like Planner, which I'll show you again a bit later, those jobs come up here as well. So you can see what tasks you've got to do from flagged emails or that you plan to do in Planner. So that's quite handy. This icon here links directly to OneDrive, which is an online storage, cloud storage, your online cloud storage, and that's the app that we're going to talk about next. Were there any questions about those few features that I mentioned in Outlook? Please feel free to type in the chat or come off mute and ask questions, or use the reactions or raise your hand. Okay, I might then move on to the next app that we're looking at, which is OneDrive. So OneDrive, as I mentioned briefly before, is an online cloud storage for your personal work files. So these are files that you're working on. You're not sharing them wide and fast for collaboration. You can share them, but they're ones that you're personally working with. It's really great because it means that if you save files to your OneDrive, you can access them from anywhere, any device and any machine, as long as it has internet connection. And if you've done something called syncing OneDrive to your personal device, you can actually even access these files offline as well. So a couple of features in here. It's got this home page, which is kind of like activity. The My Files section has all the folders and files that you've saved to your OneDrive. So you might find in here some files that you worked on a while ago and you don't know where they've gone, and they automatically save to OneDrive. You can also access files that have been shared with you or shared by you from here as well. So that's really handy if you think, oh, Joan shared that thing with me. Where did I save it, or where's the link to it? I can say, oh, yep, it's in here. There's where that recording is. Also in here, if you look down here, I've got these quick access icons, and these are teams that I belong to. So as well as accessing my files that are saved in my OneDrive, I can also access files that might be saved in any teams that I belong to from my OneDrive online as well. Now, just on that, if you are a member of lots of teams, so say you're a classroom teacher and you've got lots of classes, or you're a corporate person and a member of multiple teams, if you don't see your team in the quick access, you can click on the more places and see all the teams that you belong to from here. In OneDrive as well, I just mentioned that everyone has 1 terabyte of space, which is quite a large amount of space. But also, if you do leave the department, you only have a limited amount of time to retrieve your files, save them somewhere else, before your account is locked and deleted. One more thing to mention, there's this nice little recycle bin here. So any files you saved in OneDrive and you delete end up in this recycle bin. And again, you might accidentally delete something. You've got 30 days to recover those files. And if it was something really crucial and the 30 days lapses, you can also put in a ticket to get them recovered another 60 days after that 30-day time period. Okay, any questions about OneDrive? Right, let's have a look at the next app that we're going to talk about, or I'm going to briefly mention the next three. So in here, you'll notice desktop apps as well that you're used to, such as Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. The online versions of these are all slightly different from your desktop versions. We do recommend that if you do have the desktop versions installed, that you work in the desktop versions. However, I am going to show you a cool feature that's in Word Online a little later in the session. So just to note that the features of these, because of the web applications, are different from the desktop apps. But again, any file that you start in the web application saves automatically in your OneDrive. So you don't have to worry about saving, it just auto saves. The next app I'm going to take us into is OneNote. And OneNote is an online app and a desktop app as well. Let's take us to the online version of OneNote. So OneNote is a digital notebook. So you might remember maybe in high school, you might have had one of those yellow notebooks, quite thick with the spirals down the side and lots of files. OneNote kind of replicates that in a digital form. I'm just going to go into this OneNote here and we have a quick look in there. So you can see when it opens and loads, I've got some folders and sections down the side here, and then I've got different pages here. I might just go back and open up a different one because that one doesn't have much in it. Let's try this one instead. Here we go. So this is a different type of notebook. This is called a class notebook, but it's the same kind of principle. We've got these folders down the side here, and then in each of these folders or sections, we've got a whole lot of pages that you can access. So this is really great if you are a teacher because it allows you to sort and store and manipulate your resources. OneNote is fantastic because it has this drawer feature. So especially if you're using an interactive whiteboard, you can annotate and write as you're working. But it also, for example, here, this teacher's drawn how to draw a sketch on the whiteboard. But it also allows you to easily share resources with colleagues as well. One of the beautiful things about OneNote is that I don't have to open up a new file to find those resources. I can just click into the next page and find those really easily without having to close something and open it up again. Apart from using it as a teacher, you can use it as a team or you can use it as a staff. So some staff have all their staff meeting notes in a OneNote, and then they can easily navigate between the different sections or the different weeks, or agendas can be stored in OneNotes as well. Or if it's your own personal OneNote, I have a personal one where I take all notes. I can take pictures of things I've seen at conferences and things like that. So it's a really versatile tool, and especially if you're someone that likes writing like me, the fact that you can use a pen if you've got a touch screen or an iPad or a mobile phone, maybe one of the Samsung flip phones, you can annotate directly in your OneNote. OneNote does look quite different in the web to the desktop app, so the layout is quite different. So if you're used to using it on the desktop, I would suggest you don't try and use it on the web because they're quite different. Okay. Also, in the training handout that I sent out with the email that I sent out yesterday, I'll just mention you can see there's links here. These are links to examples that you can click on and see how you might set up a staff meeting notebook, for example, or how you might use a teaching OneNote. So all the hyperlinks in this should link you to resources. Okay. Now, the next app that we're going to have a look at is something called Sway. Just go back here, and this is the app that we're going to look at now, Sway. So just hop into Sway. So Sway is an online presentation tool. Lots of schools use it now for their newsletters. So I'll just go in and show you this example of a newsletter. In the back end, it doesn't look very pretty at all, but if I press play, you can see I've got some interactive elements coming in, and the layout's quite nice. Another nice thing about Sway, if I pull it out and resize my screen, see how the layout is changing? That's what we call reactive. And that means that if a parent, for example, is viewing a newsletter on a mobile phone, they can still read what's in that newsletter because it will automatically resize for the screen size. So that's really handy. Now, another nice thing about Sway is when you create a Sway and share it, and Sways can be shared with people outside of the department, which means they're perfect for sharing with families, you do get some analytics. So this is the back end of my Sway analytics, and I can see, for example, this newsletter here that we were just in has had 103 views, and 29% of it was read on average. So 76 people just glanced at it, 13 read it in depth. So although it doesn't tell you who has looked at the newsletter, it does give you a pretty good idea around whether your newsletter is being read, as opposed to if you send out a PDF email and you're never sure whether it's being read or not. So that's Sway. Some other ways Sway are used. Let's go back to edit it. For example, this is a student portfolio example. And so students could put together a portfolio. This is a high school one, but it could be for their artwork, it could be for anything, because they can add text, they can add images, they can embed videos and audio files as well if they're hosted somewhere else. And again, because it can be shared externally, they can share that with friends and family. Okay. Any questions around Sway? I've noticed that Sway doesn't allow you to add videos anymore. Any tips for this? Yes, so Sway recently had an update which unfortunately took away one of the features that we liked, which was that you could upload a video directly. They said you can use Stream, but in our tenancy, Stream, any videos uploaded to Stream are blocked to people outside the department. Our team personally has a YouTube channel. Canva videos you can share externally, but there's some cyber information about using videos with students and staff on Canva. So you need to look at the cyber risk assessment for using Canva. Adobe Express from memory allows you to upload and share videos as well. So there are a few options. However, it's not as seamless as it used to be because some of those options you just have to put a link rather than embedding the video in there. So unfortunately, the update hasn't been very nice for schools. Okay, let's have a look at the next app we're going to briefly look at now, which is Forms. Again, like Sway, this is only a web application, so there's no desktop app. And again, like Sway, you can share forms with people outside the department. So again, that makes it really good if you're wanting to create a registration form for canteen volunteers or sports day volunteers, or to get information from parents. Your students can use forms for collecting data, for example, for their, I've forgotten what it's called now, their research project. You can use it for voting for student representatives as well. So we just have a quick look at a couple of forms. So this one here, again, this is the back end. So the back end looks a bit different from the front end, but this particular form here, we've got some images of the different people that people can vote for. We've got some different houses. And if I look at here, it's got something called branching, which means that if a student picked the Waratah Wrens instead of, they go to question 3, but if they weren't in the Waratah Wrens and they picked the Kingston Kookaburras, they go directly to question 4. So there's some really cool things you can do with what's called branching. So this is the editing. You've got all sorts of different types of questions you can put in. And then if I preview it, this is what it looks like if the person was completing the form. Now you see here, it says hi edit. That edit is the account I'm currently logged into because it's my training account. So when you see your name there, that means that Microsoft is collecting data around who is filling in the form. So just be wary that if you see your name, chances are that the form isn't anonymous. I'll just go back. Another nice thing about forms, just go back to this one as well and go into this one because it's got some data in there, is that once you get people responding, you get a nice visual summary of the responses. So for example, this one here had 107 responses. People took about 4 minutes to complete it. And then I get some nice visual charts because this question was a multiple choice. So most people wanted to do the online afternoon sessions for this particular training. The average rating, and then we get some things like word clouds as well. So that's a really nice quick visual way to read your data. Now this one is live, so if anyone filled in this form at this point in time, we'd see those numbers change. I can also download and store that data in Excel, which means that especially if I'm collecting data for the research project, I can then use my answers and granulate and manipulate and model and use the data in really interesting ways. Forms can be shared in teams as well. So I can have a form that belongs to a team rather than in my personal account, which means that people in that team can access the back end and if they need to, edit or change the responses, but also see and view the results. And as I said before, select results. Forms can be shared with anyone, or they can be shared with the department or specific people as well. So it's a really good way of collecting data. Okay. Any questions around forms? Just before we move on, I will show you the other type of form. So the ones I've just shown you there are collecting data, but there's also something called quizzes in forms. So this one here, telling time, that's an example of a quiz. And in this case, it's a formative quiz. You can see I've got some questions, and you can see there's a tick next to the correct answer. So I can create this as a teacher. I can put in the correct answers, and then what it will do is when the student completes it, it will self-mark it. Now there is a limit to what it can self-mark. So if you put in a long response, you'll have to go in and mark that after the students have submitted it. For any multiple choice or short answer questions, you can put in responses and then it will self-mark it for you and save you time as a teacher or give students that immediate feedback. And again, this is a branching one. So if I go to preview, I can see it looks like this. And then I've got a question. If I put in the wrong answer, it's going to give me some extra help because that's how the teachers designed it. And then I can try it again or move on and do the next question example. So that brings us to the next app, which is Microsoft Teams. Okay, so Teams is available on the web or as a desktop app. And most people are quite familiar with Teams. We were forced to when we had COVID hit us. But there's been quite a lot of changes in the last couple of months. You'll see here again, you've got a icon that lets you access your OneDrive directly from within Teams. You've got a chat function, so you can only chat with staff, not students. Any teams you belong to appear under Teams. And again, because we've got the education version, we've got any classes we might be a member of in the top, and then any teams that we're a member of in the bottom section. There's 4 types of teams you can create. So in the education version, we've got these 4 different ones. If you're using Teams with students, we suggest you use the class type team. But for any other type of team, we really suggest you ignore the staff and PLC team and just click the other. The reason is because these 2 types of teams have quite a structured backend and don't allow you much flexibility. So when you're creating a new team with students, click class, and for any other reason, we do recommend that you click other. I won't go any further into Teams because I think I'm running a whole other webinar on Teams itself. But just know that there is the desktop and the web version. They're very similar these days, but they are slightly different. The next app that we're going to look at is something called Whiteboard. Now, Whiteboard you might not have used or heard of before. It's basically Microsoft's version of a whiteboard. And it's got a whole lot of pre-built templates that you can access. So really easy to use if you're wanting to do some planning in a team or with students. So I'm just going to click on New Whiteboard. I've got a blank screen that comes up that is endless, so it never ends. If I go and click on the learning templates, I've got a whole lot of templates that I could preview and use with my students straight away. And then we could use this as a class. So whiteboards I can share. So you can share with Teams, you can share in a Teams meeting as well, or you could share with students on an LMS and get everyone inputting into a whiteboard. Whiteboards also let you use draw features. So you can see this one here. I've done some writing with my stylus. So it's really easy to do brainstorming and write on whiteboards. And this one here is an example of where I've collaborated with other people in my team. And you can see that the people that have contributed to this brainstorming activity, I can see that John wrote this one, and Edit wrote this one, but John's reacted. So it's quite nice if you're using it with students, you can see who has contributed what. Okay, any questions about whiteboard? No? I promise I'm nearly at the end and we can nearly get hands-on. There's just a few more apps I want to show you. So the next one we're going to have a very brief look at is bookings. Now, I opened this up when I was talking about Outlook, but what I'm going to look or show you now is a shared booking page, and this one's called Three-Way Interviews. So if you don't currently have a way to manage parent-teacher interviews, for example, you can use bookings to do this for you. So in this particular one, I've got 3 staff in the team. If I go to bookings page and I go to this URL, I can see what parents would see. So this one's got a double and a single 3-way interview. So as a parent, I could click on that, select the teacher, and then I think there's nothing available at the moment, but if I was available at this time, I'd be able to click there and choose my time. As a parent, I'd then add my details, click on book, and then that's going to appear in Edit Learn's calendar, so I can see which parent is coming at what time. And this one will also automatically generate a Teams meeting link if you're having your interviews online. So really easy to use if you want to set up things like parent-teacher interviews. So you can see here that the staff, so if I was a bigger school, I'd have all my staff there, and I could say that this person's only available on these days at this time, and this person's available all week from these times. So you've got quite a lot of freedom to change availability for each staff member. There's a KB article as well around how to create free parent-teacher interviews in bookings, which I will link to in a follow-up email. List is another app, which is quite a nice app. So this gives you SharePoint lists. And again, it's not in my right account, so that's not very good. Let's see which one I can go into. Hopefully this one's okay. So everything that's in a SharePoint list shows up there. And this particular list here, people have filled out a form to request an app. And then the data from that form is put in this SharePoint list, and then I can change the status or status. So it's really nice if you like things in list format, quite similar to Excel, but more visual. And again, easy to share, less easy to break formulas in the back end as well. This one here is a web app, but you can see I've got it installed as a web application on my desktop as well, so that I can access the lists that I use all the time through a desktop web application. Power Automate, I'm not going to go into a lot today. You might not find this appears in your list of apps, but Power Automate is a really powerful tool. What it does, and I'll just click into my flows. What it does is it allows you to connect things like forms or Outlook and create automatic or automated tasks and processes from these things. So this one here, for example, if we go in, oops, this one's failed. That's okay. This one here, when someone put in a form, that started off this process. The computer got the information from the form. It found out who had submitted the form. It got a file according to what they submitted in the form. And in this case, it was a calendar invite, depending on whether they were attending a training session or not. It got the name, it got the file, and then it sent them an email with that calendar invite so that they could put that in their calendar. So you can see it's really powerful. And if you are interested in finding out more about Power Automate, there is a channel in a team that I will talk to you about at the end of the session, where you can find out more information and more examples. Kylie, you've got your hand up. Can you type minutes of the meeting during the meeting so that all parties can see it in real time? Was that in relation to whiteboard? Oh, there's lots of questions about whiteboard. Hang on. Let me move back into whiteboard and answer those questions before I carry on. So is there a desktop version of whiteboard? Yes, there is. If you're in corporate though, you might need to put in a ticket to get it installed on your machine. And it's very similar to the web application. It automatically saves to the cloud. So any whiteboards that you create, whether it's in the desktop app or on the web app, you'll be able to see them in here as tiles. Can whiteboard overlay something like PowerPoint? Anita, not really. They're two separate apps. So PowerPoint does have its own writing and drawing tools that you can use a bit like a whiteboard. You can kind of export these, but as a JPEG, so you can't then do the sticky notes and add to them. So I can, if I wanted to record this and pop it in a PowerPoint for future reference, I can go up and share. No, forgotten how to do it. Export, there we go. So I can export it as an image, which means I can then insert it into a PowerPoint, but they don't interact live. Can you take minutes of the meeting during the meeting so that all parties can see in real time in bookings? No, it doesn't have any other features other than the bookings. So setting up the bookings, it doesn't have the meeting notes and information set up with it. Sorry, Kylie, that was about bookings. Cherie, following up on the desktop version, I'm in corporate. If I want to collaborate with others in Teams, will all the others need to submit a form? So only if you want the desktop version. But if you're working with your colleagues in Teams, let me just hop into Teams, the desktop version, and pick a team. You can do something. You can actually add a whiteboard to a team. So I'm just going to add that as a tab. And there's whiteboard there, but you might need to search for it. So this is the best way to use whiteboard as a team, because then everyone already in the team can all add to that whiteboard. It appears as a tab in whatever channel you put it in, and then you can expand the tab or open in a browser as well to easily access it. So if you are wanting to use whiteboard with a team, that's probably the best way to use it. But if you do want the desktop version, then each person that needs it installed would need to submit a ticket. When I follow up with an email, Cherie, I will confirm that and give you some further instructions. Can I add an image of my own to the whiteboard? Yes, you definitely can. So you can definitely add images, you can add videos, links. Loop components means that you can have a list and have people adding to that list. If you click on documents, it will import it as an image. So if I've got a worksheet that I want people to all fill out, typing or working on it together or writing notes or commenting, I can import that as an image, and then everyone can scribble away and make suggestions. Okay, apologies for missing those questions in the chat. Right. So I was briefly talking about Power Automate. And as I said, if you don't have access to it, you can try accessing it from makepowerautomate.com. And I will also let you know where you can find out some further information about how other people are using it at the end of this session. And we're getting very close and I haven't even done any interactive things yet. So apologies for that. Okay, I might skip stream. We will have a quick look at Planner though, because Planner is really good if you're wanting to organize your team, organize things. It's not so good for students. So you can add a planner to a class team. However, students can just go and edit and delete people's tasks. You can't set the permissions to allow them not to do that. So if you've got students that are trustworthy, yes, by all means use it to help them with their planning. Otherwise, it's more for team planning for staff. So this one here, I've set up a flow in Power Automate so that when I flag an email that comes into my inbox, it automatically creates a task for me here. So I had to do something about Adobe Express, and then this particular one, it's got the contents of the email, but I can add lists. So it might be create intro, add voiceover, etc. So I could create step by step all the things that I need to do in order to complete this task. I can also add other people. So you can see in this board, I've got 3 other people. So if I create a task, you can see I can assign it, pick who else I need to assign it to, and then they get an email alert as well. to say they've got a task, and of course I can set the due date and things like that. So that's really nice if you're wanting something to track and record and help you planning with staff. You can create these buckets. These are called buckets at the top, and then you can move tasks around as well. So that's Planner. Planner as well can be added to a team. So I can create a planner within a team, which means that all the people in that team will then have access to that. So really, really useful. Okay, now we don't have much time left, but hopefully you can get a tiny bit hands-on in the last bit of the session. So what I would like you to do, if you're only using one screen, remember you can click on the Windows key and the left or the right arrow to split your screen. If you've got one or two screens, or once you've done that, what I want you to do is go to Word Online. So if you don't have it open like myself, remember you can access it through EdPass, and if you scroll up to the top of the chat, there's a link to EdPass up the top, and then you can click on Word there. If you're using Edge, you might see some icons across here. You can click and access Word Online there as well. And then in Teams, if you can just give me a thumbs up when you've got Word open. We just want a blank document. Okay, so the tool that I'm hopefully going to get you to test, I haven't seen many thumbs up, so hopefully people have got Word open by now. You want to give me a virtual thumbs up. Thanks, Linda. So the tool we're going to have a look at briefly, excellent, Robin, is one called Immersive Reader. An Immersive Reader is a really cool tool that was developed by Microsoft to help students with dyslexia, but it's got all sorts of other fantastic uses as well. Now, the reason why I'm using Word Online is that the online versions of the app have a much more developed application of Immersive Reader than the desktop versions. So you'll see the icon in the desktop versions, but the features aren't as rich. Now, in order for us to use Immersive Reader, we need some text on our page. So I'm just going to open a new tab. I'm going to put in Olympics, and hopefully it will bring up something for me to copy. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to copy a bit of text and then go back into my Word document. I did Control-C to copy, and I'm doing Control-V to paste. So I've got some text in here, and then maybe I struggle to read text because there's too much on the page, or maybe English isn't my first language, and I need some support. So where do I find Immersive Reader? In Word Online, it's in the View tab, and hopefully everyone has got some text. If you haven't copied and pasted something, if you just put a sentence in, that should be enough for you to see what it does. And in my View tab, I've got this icon of an open book with a speaker called Immersive Reader. Now, when I click on that, it's going to change my page layout. You can see that it's changed it, so it's made it easier for me to read. I've got this thing called line focus, so if I've got a big enough chunk, I can change how much of the text appears on the page. Again, really helpful for students that struggle. I've got this a picture dictionary, so if I click on a word, I can see some images that might help me understand the word. If I click on listen, and I think I haven't shared my sound, so I'm just going to share that now. Quickly. It's not sharing my screen, I don't think. But if you could hear my sound, when I press that icon, it will play it out aloud to me as well. Here we go again. If you missed it before, I can get to Immersive Reader from the View tab and Immersive Reader. Yeah, apologies. Seem to be having some issues today with my computer. But hopefully, if you've managed to open up Immersive Reader, you can have a play with pressing the play button yourself and hear it. There's a few more things that I'm going to mention though. So in the text preference one, you can change the size of the text. Again, really handy for students who struggle. You can decrease and increase the speeding. You can change the font, and Comic Sans is actually has been shown to be really the best font for dyslexic students. You can also change the different colors, and Immersive Reader will remember your preferences. So the next time I turn it on, it will remember that I wanted Comic Sans font and what colors. In this second window, I've got some other features that are really good if I'm teaching English and parts of speech. So what these ones do here is they highlight the different parts of speech. And this works in English, but also if I go back to the reading preference menu, I've got something called translate. So if I've got students who have a different language as their mother tongue, I can pick that language. I'm going to pick French. And they can support themselves by getting translation one word at a time, or the whole document can be translated. And you'll notice that these words are still highlighted with the different colours. And even though this is French, it's still recognising that this, which is August, is a noun. This one here is an adverb, etc. So really handy for helping students, but also if you're a teacher of another language, you can use it in your class as well. And if you've got the picture dictionary on as well, you'll again get some images in there. I got it to work in Immersive Reader. Excellent. Can you change the colour of the writing? You can't change the colour. You can just change the background. However, if you are doing the grammar options, you can change the colour of the grammar options. So if you are doing something, a language program that has specific colours for different parts of speech, you can change them to fit the spelling program or the English program that you're using. But you can't change actual font, you can just change the background. Okay, one more feature in here, and I don't think we have time, I'll have time to show you the PowerPoint one, but there's something called Reading Coach. And what this one does is it lets the student read the text, it records them reading, and then it gives them a bit of a report at the end to say their accuracy, whether they're reading too slow, so their speed, their enunciation, their intonation, and things like that. And then it will pick 5 words that it thinks they need to practice. So again, this is really good if you want students to practice reading another language, for example, or practice their English reading as well. They will need to log on to their M365 account to access Word online. So if they're really young, they might need some support from an SSO, for example, to help them initially access the Immersive Reader. But Immersive Reader is available anywhere that you see that little book icon. So it's available in Teams, it's available in PowerPoint, it's available all over the place. It's even available in Minecraft if your students play Minecraft education. Right, that is all we've got time for. Apologies that we didn't do more hands-on, but thank you so much for all the questions. I will just end by pointing you in the direction of some further resources that you can use if you want to explore anything further in depth. The first one is the Microsoft Learn website, and this has all sorts of different courses that you can do if you're a teacher or if you've got the education version of M365. So there's a special educator centre, and then there's all sorts of professional development that you can do. I do suggest if you're going to go on here that you sign in and create an account with your @schools email, because then it will record what you've done, and that will help you when you need to put in your teacher's reg. The next site that we like to point you in the direction of is the Technology and Platform YouTube channel. So this is one that the training team maintain. We haven't posted many videos this year because there's been a bit of change in our team, but we do like to post videos to help you. They're normally quite short and they're specific to our tenancy. So they should work in our environment, because one of the biggest things when you're searching for information online is you find something, it looks good, and then you go to do it and it doesn't work in our tenancy. So if you're stuck, have a look at that. On Plink, you'll find there's training courses, a bit like this webinar, and some of them run by Microsoft as well, that you're welcome to join. And the last place you can go for help, which I did allude to earlier, is the M365 App Support and Collaboration team. So this is a team that is available for anyone in the department to join. And if you've got a question about anything, you can pop it in here, and then hopefully someone either from the training team or someone from a school, from corporate, someone else in the department will hopefully be able to help you. So the link to join that team, if you'd like to join that team, is in the chat as well. Thank you for bearing with me. I feel like I did a lot of talking, but hopefully people found that useful. I'm happy to stay online for a little bit longer. If people have any other questions, feel free to come off mute, but I'll stop the recording now.